Welcome to the Faith and Business Podcast. I'm your host, Elle Edwards, the Happiness Geek from the Faith and Business Playground, here with Bible-friendly brain gymnastics to help you be joyful for Jesus in 2019. In today's episode of the podcast, we are taking on the idea that there is joy to be found in having just 30 books. Yes, this episode is inspired by Marie Kondo. The world seems to have gone crazy for her ever since her series was launched on Netflix. I had to actually look back through my Amazon history because I knew I'd read her book. I read her book what felt like ages and ages ago. And I looked back, and thanks to the way Amazon stores everything, I actually did read it in January 2015. So it was 4 years ago. I thought it was a long time. And in case you're listening to this going, no, Elle, Marie's lovely, don't give her a hard time. I'm not here to give her a hard time. I love her book. I'll just say that from the outset. After reading that book, I did declutter, and it's something that I do. It is something that I do routinely. I live in a house with 3 children, now 2 teenagers and a nearly 12-year-old, plus my husband, dogs, guinea pig, hamster. And as you can imagine, that does collect with it quite a lot of stuff. And added to the fact that my husband loves bargain hunting. He loves finding little delightful things on eBay. Sometimes it works really well, incidentally. He is the reason why I'm now a big coffee fan. He bought a mocha pot off eBay years and years ago. And I said, oh, what have you bought this rubbish for? We don't drink coffee. And then I had my first coffee with the coffee from the mocha pot. And ever since then, I don't drink tea anymore. I drink coffee. So there are lovely things to be had. There is joy to be had in the things that he buys. However, it does come with quite a lot of clutter. So I did declutter following Marie's methods for the first time in 2015, and it's something that I do periodically. For me, at least, living with the people that I live with, it's not a one-time deal. I can declutter my office, which is in the house. I can declutter my space, but for example, every time I do the kitchen, for weeks afterwards, my eldest daughter, who loves to cook, loves to bake, what have you done with this? The famous one is the bread tin. What have you done with the bread tin? I was like, well, we weren't using it, so I took it to the charity shop. Oh, mum. So I do my space. So I have that caveat that I really do love Marie's methods, but I know that there has been lots of people in outrage with the idea that we should only have 30 books. And I like her stuff so much that when there was an illustrated guide to the Japanese art of tidying was then released, and it's got the name Spark Joy. And so I thought, well, actually, given that I'm all about empowering and inspiring happiness in you, happiness and joy, and given that Marie is taking on the joy of tidying effectively, I thought, well, where's the overlap there? Hence why I wanted to dedicate today's episode to that. Because people have been a little bit up in arms that, they can't possibly have just 30 books. As somebody who loves to read, I would be inclined to agree. As somebody who writes books, I'd be inclined to agree. What I will say, though, is that I do have some books on my shelf that I would never get rid of. I read them more than once. I'm thinking of fiction in particular. Well, there's lots of non-fiction books too, actually, that come under that heading. But there are some fiction books. When you get to the end of the book, you're like, and you're sort of torn between being glad because you know how it all comes together at the end, but then also like, because you feel like you've almost got to say goodbye to a really dear friend. And so I like to reread those books. So I would never give those away. However, I get to the end of other books and I like it. It was a good book. I really enjoyed it, but I won't want to read it again. And it's those sort of books that I personally believe Marie is saying, look, that book has given you the joy that it's going to give you. Now it's time to hand that on to somebody else. And we're not for 1 minute suggesting you should burn all your books. Marie says you shouldn't burn all your books. In fact, she's even gone out and said, look, if having 50 books brings you joy, have 50 books. It's just a number. She's not trying to be prescriptive. It's about finding the delight in the things that are around you. And it ties in with what I advocate as well, because in Friday's episode of the podcast, we're going to be exploring this idea of finding the joy and the delight that's already happening around you versus the idea of doing more of the things that light you up. I think I see those as two distinct things, and I'm going to go into this more on Friday. That's a quick intro for that one for you, but it ties in with what Marie talks about, because if the space around you doesn't put a smile on your face, if you don't walk into your home office, if like me, you work from home, and if you walk into your home office and it makes you go, ugh, what do you think that does to your state of mind as you're getting prepared and ready to do your work for the day? I'll tell you what it does for your state of mind. It puts you in a negative space. And there's lots and lots of science and research being done now that, you know, we grew up with this idea that we're going to work hard, we're going to be successful, and then we can be happy. But actually, science is proving that it should be, and it is, the other way round. That you find happiness, you look for the joy and the delight in day-to-day life, and that fuels you and that empowers you, and then you are more successful, you are more productive, you do have I'm using air quotes here, better life. I mean, this idea of success, of course, you know, success is personal to everybody. One person's idea of success is vastly different to somebody else's. Like I use the example of Richard Branson. I wouldn't want Richard Branson's success. I have no interest whatsoever in running a business that has lots of employees, and well, he's got multiple businesses, of course. As much as I do tend to, I've got 2 or 3 different business things that I'm working on at a time, but I wouldn't want to have all the businesses that he's got jet setting around the world. What success looks like for him is personal to him, and what it looks like to me is personal to me, and the same is true for you as well. So when I talk about success, I feel like I should caveat that by recognizing that success is not the same for everybody else. And this idea that we have to have success as is defined by someone over there is absolute nonsense. I feel like that's probably another podcast episode again, but you know, this idea that we have to work hard and do all the things and then we'll be happy, though, that bit is completely back to front, and science is now backing that up. And so that's where I think there is lots to be said about Marie's methods. And there are other people, of course, who declutter. I don't know whether it's because she's Japanese. I mean, if you've watched her show on Netflix, she's very sweet and lovely. You could not like her. I mean, she's just delightful. So I don't know whether it's that has sparked the imagination of the world. I mean, it's not the world, but lots of the world. If you haven't come across her book, I feel like you perhaps haven't been on social media at all. But as is often the case, I feel like everyone is finally catching up. I did read this 4 years ago. I'm like, well, okay, where have you all been? But she has sparked the attention and the imagination of people. And so it ties in with happiness, because the more you can set up your environment to put a smile on your face, the more successful you will be, ultimately. And science proves that. And so if you've been following along with if you either seen her show on Netflix, or maybe you've read a book, maybe just read an article about the way that she advocates tidying up, and if you think, oh, actually, do you know what? Some aspects of my environment aren't really making me feel as joyful and uplifted as they might be, then I would encourage you to do something about that. Now, she does have a very specific method, and she has an order that you should go through. Incidentally, of course, you probably long-time listeners will know how much I love the word should. I don't love it at all, but she does have an order that she recommends that you tackle things, and I can see the sense in it. It makes sense to me, for example, to tackle clothes before sentimental items, because the idea of the crux of her method is that you bring everything together, which I didn't do it this way. I did it a room at a time. But you bring stuff together and you hold each item, and you take a moment to feel appreciation for that item, and then think, right, does this item still bring me joy? Does it still light me up? If not, you get rid of it. And that comes with this is where all the memes I've gone around. Oh, well, I picked up my husband picked me up the other day, and I don't bring him joy anymore, so he threw me in the trash. No, it's not about that. This is about, I guess, feeling appreciation for the stuff. I mean, most of us have too much stuff anyway. We tend to accumulate. And if you've got children to add into the mix as well, that's not great. But if you can take time to look around you. I'm looking actually now. I'm not going to put a photo of my desk as it stands at the moment with the show notes. I could do. It's not too messy right now. Because I know for me, for example, I do like on a Sunday afternoon. One of the things I like to do is I do like to just put away all the bits and pieces and have a quick tidy round, because there's something about getting up Monday morning, house is looking lovely. It puts you in that good frame of mind. I either do it then, or sometimes I do it on a Friday, because I also love coming down on a Saturday morning and the house looks delightful. But I'm looking around at my desk now, and there isn't much clutter as such. I mean, I've got my phone, I've got headphones, I've got my Bible, I've got my line a day journal, got a calendar. The only cluttery thing is is my Indian head massager. You know those little I don't know if you've seen them. I'll have to put a photo of that, won't I? It's those things that you can use to sort of scratch your head. Oh, they feel amazing. I don't use it every day. I really should, actually, given what reaction the thought of that had in me. But I wouldn't dream of getting rid of that, even though it is technically clutter. It's not something I need. But every time I use it, it feels amazing. And even just the thought of it feeling amazing, it's putting a great big smile on my face. And that ultimately is the point. That ultimately, I believe, is Marie's point. Because you can find delight and joy and happiness in the most random, silly, incidental little things. And we will talk about this more in Friday's episode. And also that anticipation as well. Sometimes, like the anticipation of an Indian head massage with my massager thing, which, yes, you can bet I am going to have a go on after I finish recording this episode. It's yearning at me now to be played with. But that anticipation of something delightful can make you feel good too. And all of this, it's not just sort of woo-woo, yeah, let's all be happy. Because yes, okay, it's great to feel happy in the moment, but it's actually, it does a number of things in your brain. You appreciating those things, you surrounding yourself in your environment with things that light you up, it primes your brain to filter in more of the same. But it also helps you show up in the world a more delightful, loving person. And so you can infect, in a good way, the people around you. And as Jesus geeks, my mission here at the Faith and Business Playground is to empower and equip you to show up as delightful and full to the top with God's love, with a smile on your face. So then when people say to you, oh, you're usually quite happy, what's that about? You can give an answer and you can point them to Jesus, so that we can be that antidote. We can be an alternative to when lots of people hear the word Christian, they hear Christian, they think of maybe the church that gave them a hard time, or they think of all the negative stuff. I'm here to equip and empower us together to be an antidote to that. And yes, that starts with how you show up in the day. That starts with the things that put a smile on your face. There's verse after verse after verse in the Bible about having a cheerful heart and thinking lovely thoughts and all that sort of stuff. God wrote the book on personal development. And so it is biblical to seek happiness and to smile. And you can do that by considering the environment around you. And if you feel so inspired, to start, appreciating the things that you have, so that you can step into each new day with a smile on your face. Anyway, we'll be digging more into smiles in Friday's episode, of course, and I will link in the show notes, in case you haven't come across Marie Kondo's book, I will link to her book in the show notes as well, because it was a good read. I seem to remember I bought the illustrated guide because I didn't want to have to go back and read the whole thing again. But I will link to it in the show notes in case you haven't come across that, because it's really quite interesting. Even if you don't do all of it, anything that you can do to make your the space that you exist in more lovely to you, in my book, that's got to be a good thing. Anyway, I look forward to sharing Friday's episode with you. And if you're not already subscribed, please do subscribe. And if you're listening to this and you're not already a member of my free Facebook community, the League of Brilliance, I would invite you. I do that all the time. That's now the second time in about 5 episodes where I've said invite instead of invite. Apparently I'm Irish. I would invite you to come on over to theleagueofbrilliance.com. theleagueofbrilliance.com. It will redirect you to the Facebook group. Alternatively, go to faithandbusinessplayground.com, sign up, and you'll get an invite that way. But the easiest way to find the group is theleagueofbrilliance.com. It's small at the moment. There's about 40 of us, but together we are empowering, inspiring, and equipping each other to be more delightful and happy so that we can be joyful for Jesus in 2019. theleagueofbrilliance.com. In the meantime, thank you for listening. I look forward to catching up with you in the very next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.